for taking the time out to listen to me. My name is FrancesKelley, and I was the lead organizer for the Concerned Citizens of the CampMinden Open Burn campaign. I got involved starting in December of 2014 and have spent most of the last 2 years working on this project, including hundreds of hours researching and talking to experts from around the country about the challenges of disposing of explosive hazardous waste. So I just want to start off by saying that throughout the campaign and throughout the dialogue committee process, there was a consensus among the citizens and among the elected officials and representatives from EPA and the National Guard and everyone who participated in the dialogue committee that we did not want for CampMinden and for North Louisiana to become a permanent hazardous waste disposal site. Through the work that I've done, I've found out that there are 557,000 tons of military munitions that will need to be disposed of in the next 10 years. And the concern is that all of that waste could potentially come to CampMinden. We wanted to make sure that that would not happen and that this community that has been through so much already with the groundwater pollution, the explosions that have happened since Explo, the CBI open burns that happened last fall, and just all of the uncertainty about whether or not this 15 million pounds of M6 would be open burned or not. The community is ready to move on. They're tired and they're angry. And I think, first of all, we owe it to them to see that this commitment that was made to the citizens, that when the M6 was gone, that would be the last they would have to worry about, that commitment is kept. So one of the things that's really important to understand is that while this contained burn chamber is similar to an incinerator in many ways, it has the same chemical reaction that happens, which is combustion, and many of the same challenges as traditional incinerators. It can only dispose of waste that is explosive. It doesn't have a constant heat source. It just lights the explosives on fire and they explode or detonate within the chamber, and then the gases are gone through the pollution abatement system. So any waste that we brought in, which would be millions and millions of pounds a year if the chamber stays, would be explosive waste. And that would be waste that would be traveling on trains, on trucks. I don't know exactly how they would be getting it here, but it would be coming to our communities, on the interstates and the train tracks and through residential areas to get to CampMinden. And the more of that kind of waste that you bring in, the more of the potential there is for another explosion or an accident. That we've been very lucky that none of the explosions so far have hurt or killed anyone, although they have disturbed the community. People had to be evacuated, people's homes were damaged, but there's always the potential when you're dealing with especially such large quantities of explosive waste, 15 million pounds a year or more, because the company is trying to expand beyond just the jobs and the chamber that they have now, that someone could get seriously hurt. It's within a few miles of several schools, and I think it's really important that we understand that once it's there would be an incentive to bring more and more of the millions and millions of pounds that the military is trying to get rid of into this community. The other thing that I think it's very important for anyone that's looking at the situation to understand is that when we did research about what the alternatives to open burning were for M6, we were looking specifically for M6, which is a relatively uniform substance. It has only 5 ingredients. It doesn't have many of the kinds of contaminants that would make it difficult to burn cleanly, such as metals or chlorine or other kinds of contaminants that are more difficult to dispose of. And so the pollution abatement system that is on the contained burn chamber is specifically for M6. It's never been tested with any other kinds of waste, and it's never been tested with mixed waste, which is much harder to burn cleanly. And so those emission numbers that they're citing as zero emissions, which is actually not true. You can't ever have zero emissions, and their numbers don't actually show that. But those numbers are for the M6, and they're not for any other kinds of waste. And we have no evidence that it would work as well as it has on the M6 with any other kinds of waste. In fact, what we know from other incinerators which use the same chemical process, combustion, is that most hazardous waste incinerators in this country are currently in violation of the environmental regulations and exceed the limits that they're permitted to pollute, and it's not enforced, and there's no evidence that this would be any different in this situation. So I think that it's really important that we stand by the original agreement that was made to the citizens, and that we don't allow North Louisiana to be potentially the largest hazardous waste disposal site for explosive waste in the country. Thanks for your time.